The Cataclysm, one of the biggest wars and earth-shattering conflicts in Teyvat's entire history. And it only happened 500 years ago, which isn't really that long considering the timeline of Teyvat. I stumbled upon this really amazingly done fan-made trailer. There'll be a link in the comments and in the description, so you really should check it out because it perfectly depicts the events of what happened right before the game starts. And I think for having such amazing lore, Genshin does a pretty terrible job at actually depicting this stuff. Other than just reading it in a random dialogue in an hour-long quest, this actually shows step by step and breaks it down, so we're going to be going over it in this video. So as you can see, it starts out with Khaenri'ah, this portal, and obviously linked to the sages of Khaenri'ah, Rhine-Daughter, and there's their massive civilization they have built up here. The most advanced civilization in Teyvat, and then we got the Eclipse Dynasty with Dainsleif here. And then you're gonna see the Khaenri'ahs coming together to summon outside help, which we literally just made a video about this. The Traveler. The Traveler just got summoned to Khaenri'ah as an external force and outside help. Because the Traveler, before the game's event started, was in Khaenri'ah for a stint before the opening cutscene. And you can see how advanced Khaenri'ah actually is, until the war would break out. And this interestingly depicts that perhaps Khaenri'ah bit off more than they could chew, and that actually the Abyss attacked Khaenri'ah first, that they were actually the first victims of the Abyss and just the rifts opening. I love the attention to detail. We get to see Kaya's father, probably her grandfather, one of the two, and then you get to see the war break out in Khaenri'ah, that even the Khaenri'ahs are fighting against the Abyss, the Rift monsters and everything unleashed, that it wasn't intentional. And then you see a Ruin Guard go down, one of those big mechas. The Traveler's caught into it, looks sad. And the death toll must have been insurmountable at this point, with all the monsters. I mean, this war took place across 7 nations simultaneously, but the first nation that they would have sacked would be Khaenri'ah itself, and once they breached and escaped, Sumeru and Fontaine would be the closest regions to actually get hit. And then you could see it depicted here. Ruka Devada senses the incoming danger in her mission to guard Irminsul, her in the Aranara. And we can see Bodacious, or the Yaksha, get prepared to go to the chasm, where we know he ultimately perished, to fend off the monsters deep within the cavern. And because we know the cavern is really close on the border of Sumeru as well, it would have been a heavy spot, and sort of underrated what he actually sacrificed and did there. And then we can see on Dragonspine, Durin, the Black Dread, the dragon that Dvalin ended up having to take down, slaughtering a bunch of Mondstadt soldiers, them trying to keep Durin at bay, and then you see Dvalin fly in there at the end. We can see Raiden A, and she notices that her sister is actually gone. She left her trinket as she goes with the other archons in Sumeru to stop the Abyssal Rift and the monsters spewing into Teyvat, with an epic battle taking place between the archons and all of the monsters in Ruin Mecha. And interestingly enough, it seems that the Ruin Guards are even up against the monsters as well. We can see the Heavenly Principles has entered, and then Barbados. Zhongli throwing his meteor down. It's just an epic visual to actually get to see how the Cataclysm possibly played out. And this is exactly how it played out according to the text and the lore that we got. We can see a lot of death. The death toll must have been massive, and the corruption. And all of Khaenri'ahs were cursed after this, because even if you were innocent bystander, you were part of the problem. Khaenri'ah wrought this on Teyvat. We can see the Raiden Shogun Raiden A grieving her sister Raiden Makoto, who perished at this battle. And then we see the Hydro Archon, the original Hydro Archon Egeria, who was also slain. And then Ruka Devada turning her essence and life force into the pool that we see at the Great Tree bordering Fontaine, and also helping confine this corruption and sealing the abyssal rift that was there. And it still stands to this day. After this, pure-blooded Khaenri'ahs were cursed with immortality, while the half-breeds were turned into monsters or hilly trolls. And from this point on, our abyssal twin would go on their journey with Dainsleif. And that is a breakdown of the Cataclysm, one of the greatest catastrophes to ever happen to Teyvat. And this whole conflict happens right before our journey begins in the opening cutscene. And after that opening cutscene, where we both get sealed away by the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles, our twin would go on their journey with Dainsleif while we would remain asleep or in a comatose-like state for 500 years until we eventually meet Paimon and start our journey. Why I think this is interesting and good to go over is because the game doesn't really do a good job of depicting all this stuff leading up to the start of the game. And even all of these details shown in this trailer are directly from the game, quotes, and the text, dialogue, information that we get. This is exactly how the Cataclysm played out, according to all the dialogue, in-game information, texts, books, artifacts, and text cutscenes, and just story quests. Even though Genshin Impact has such an amazing story and lore, I do think they should do a better job like this trailer. Like the person that made this trailer, I really recommend you go and watch it, because there are a lot of people that'll just skip these really long, drawn-out story quests that don't even have voice acting, that are like 2-3 hours long, where you're skipping the text button because it's just so long and you're not going to read the entire thing. Not everyone's going to read every book and artifact description and everything that there is in this game. So I feel like this trailer really shows some of the most important moments in Genshin's entire lore and story leading up to the game's events, leading up to when we start the game. But on that note, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And again, go watch this trailer, because especially if you're not 100% like up to date on Genshin lore, this perfectly depicts the Cataclysm, you know, the death of the archons, Khaenri'ah summoning the help of the Traveler, and then it backfiring somehow. The big question I still want to know though is, if the Traveler was summoned here, why? The big question I want to know is if the archons were just trying to save and defend Teyvat, and that Khaenri'ah bit off more than they can chew, leading to most of their civilians and citizens being caught in the crossfires and being cursed for something they didn't sign up for. But the big question I want to know is, if the archons were summoned there to save Teyvat, prevent this huge catastrophe from happening, why then? Why does our Abyss sibling, Lumine, choose to side with the Abyss in our current game story while we're venturing Teyvat? We've met Lumine a couple times, and she seems to have taken a soft spot to Khaenri'ah, the people that were cursed, and the Abyss, being the Abyssal Queen or Princess. That is interesting, because if the Abyss was at fault and almost caused the destruction of Teyvat, why would someone like Lumine side with them? There must be more than meets the eye with this. That is why Genshin's story is so interesting. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. I really do appreciate you all watching this far. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.